Hello, I'm the Angry Spork. Today's crossover combines two properties that we have not yet looked at before on the show, though one I have far more nostalgia for than the series I feel more compelled to elaborate on. In 1962, a series of trading cards from Topps were released under the name Attack from Space, though soon changed to Mars Attacks. The alien designs were actually inspired by comics, specifically Weird Science number 16 from EC Comics. For a nickel, one could purchase a pack of 5 cards from a 55-piece set, each card telling a part of the overall story, almost like buying a comic book by the page. Do not get any ideas, Marvel or DC! The story is about humanity fighting off an encroachment of Martians. Big surprise, huh? However, what the larger Martian population doesn't know, what their corrupt government has kept from them, is that their own world is doomed to explode, and they thought the best option was to colonize outside their own atmosphere. Remind me again why rich people want to build spaceships and leave Earth? For a race with what look like large brains, they're taking all the wrong lessons from solar opposites. Anyway, the cards created a bit of an uproar among some parents who found some of the artwork graphically sexual and violent, leading to about a quarter of them being repainted, but production eventually halted after the outcry. A couple decades later, Topps would renew merchandising, creating new cards under an Archives banner, comics retelling the original story, others that had the aliens attack the Image universe, hey, something to remember for the next year of the crossover, and eventually a 1996 Tim Burton movie that I personally found a little unpleasant. And today, these skull-faced menaces have maintained a presence in sequential storytelling, particularly causing problems for characters established by IDW. When malicious forces from beyond the moon start trouble, who you gonna call? 4 guys in New York that live in an old firehouse, naturally. I'm taking issue with Mars Attacks, the real Ghostbusters. So let's see if this comic makes us want to turn the page, or turn our heads. The cover evokes one of the Topps cards, Egon firing his proton wand at a swirling crimson vortex with a Martian in the center, pulling in farm equipment like a shovel, a tractor, and a cow. What? A cow can be equipment if you train it right. For all we know, that bovine eats invasive weeds or does the farmer's accounting. The caption for the card features not only the year the real Ghostbusters cartoon premiered, but a title that would totally have been used for such an episode of the show. The alliteration, at least one word devoted to fear, if not the supernatural. I kinda dig it. Maybe because I rewatched the episodes on YouTube last year. Written by Eric Burnham, with art by Jose Holder, Jeremy Colwell, and Neil Udique. Sorry if I mispronounced that. My own fault for deciding to name-drop a letterer. What do they contribute to comics? Wait a minute. We begin way back in 1938, October 30th to be exact, where a radio announcer describes a surprise Martian attack that's almost taken a beachhead in New Jersey. Not only are humans not alone in the universe, they were totally unprepared for this assault. This EBS broadcast could have floated harmlessly into space, but was instead intercepted by a flying saucer stationed just beyond the moon, manned by 3 Martians. They begin translating it, as they have with months of different radio series of Earth's Protector, Hercules Holloway, and his Adventure Science Team. It would not do to miss such valuable information, especially not after he had so easily conquered the Venusians. It is believed his amazing battle prowess stems from this nutrient supplement they call Ovaltine. After the message is translated that their people have supposedly begun their besieging of the Blue Marble, the commander is rather surprised to hear of an attack on Earth of which he was not informed. He's actually a less fun version of Zim among the Martian invaders, and no one has the heart to tell him. Menacingly holding a glowing green orb, whatever it's supposed to be, it doesn't get brought up for the rest of the story, he orders to join the attack. But once they land, they find no battle, nothing burning, not even an impaled Jack Nicholson. Detecting the broadcast from a Norman Rockwell painting apparently, further translation claims the tide of the war has turned, humanity prevailing over the enemy. In case it's not already obvious, they've been listening to the War of the Worlds special, the one everyone thought caused mass rioting and panic across the country at the time, when in reality, people knew it was just entertainment, making that scene of this wholesome family listening to it kind of historically accurate, except for the bloodthirsty Martians outside their window. Believing this to be a trick to learn their secrets, the commander orders them back to the ship so they can rally their forces, advance their long-planned invasion, and make the Earthers regret their ruse. Good thing they were too clever to fall for it completely. Aw, that's nice. You keep those positive affirmations going, and you'll destroy the planet yet. Wait a minute. Unfortunately, they were in too much of a hurry to account for meteors falling to the Earth. Like this one, smaller than a baseball that bounces off their hull, which causes them to start panicking, one saying they're too damaged to return to Mars, and the commander ordering self-destruction to avoid their ship being confiscated. Unfortunately, it's not working, for some reason, and they crash into some farmland. Their ship can enter and exit a planet's atmosphere just fine, but one bonk from a space rock and nothing works. Are they eternal pessimists? Is Martian technology surprisingly delicate? Or are they worried about their insurance rates? We return to the present by the Ghostbusters logo. I guess he got a renewed contract with a narration option. Inside a toy store, the team is dealing with a giant nutcracker firing walnuts at them from its mouth, and some of the proton blasts are straying out into the public.
Are you aiming for these people? No. Maybe that mine.
Somehow, it's Winston throwing a football through the ghost's mouth, like really through it, that makes it vulnerable to their blasts. And I'm going to assume this smile is unintentionally sinister looking. Did that ghost owe him money or something? So the phantasm is trapped, many a pun is had, and they later return to the fire station, where Ray and Slimer play with a toy helicopter, which was part of their fee, subsequently causing Venkman to spill his overpriced coffee. Sorry, Peter, but maybe it's a sign from the universe that you're drinking too much caffeine.
Yeah, too much.
You gotta inject it into your armpit, Peter. Cut out the middleman. Janine gets a call with a new job for them in Jersey, specifically Elmo's Hill, which Ray has always wanted to visit because it was featured in the War of the Worlds, which his family listened to each Halloween. It wouldn't be until his late 20s that Ray heard of trick-or-treating, and he began to rethink his entire childhood. They arrive at a farm where its owner has been waiting for them. What kind of problem do you have for us today, sir? Jersey Devil? Puritan Poltergeist?
Yeah, what are you on about, boy? This is Elmo's Hill.
So, Cookie Monster? He called them about the Martians. Ghost Martians. He remembers being a kid and seeing the saucer crash to the ground, even wondered how his parents didn't hear it. But the craft dug itself beneath the dirt, leaving no trace it was ever there. While this seems to contradict what happened a few pages ago, where it crashed, with a crash sound effect and everything, it seems 2 of the 3 Martians died on impact, and the survivor pressed a button, which I guess made the craft burrow underground. Either that or it dropped a bunch of balloons and confetti so he could celebrate his promotion to commander, and the disappearance was entirely coincidental. The kid tried telling his pa about it, but instead got spanked for presumably listening to the radio past his bedtime. He considered trying to dig up the ship, presumably to bury his dad along with it, but decided against doing so, given what it seemed capable of. Peter remained skeptical, while clarifying they deal with ghosts. We don't deal with any phony baloney aliens. There's no proof to suggest aliens are phony baloney. Available scientific evidence suggests aliens are more questionable prosciutto. Totally different. Now, I'm going to be a bit pedantic here. I feel like Egon's reasoning is a bit flawed, and he's supposed to be the smart one. He's suggesting that there's no proof that aliens aren't real when there would need to be proof that they do exist. What this dialogue suggests is proving a negative. Would have made more sense if he had cited some studies and phenomena that could be evidence of extraterrestrial travelers. No wonder Peter snarks for him to be quiet.
Nerd!
The farmer reminds that he said they were ghosts that also happened to be Martians.
It was the doggone cable company. They said they'd release those ghosts between 9 a.m. Thursday and 6 p.m. Saturday, and they'd done released them at 12:36 p.m. on Monday.
The workers were installing something, doesn't get explained, but I guess it doesn't matter, and it's when they began digging in the very spot the farmer warned them not to that the alien specters sprung from the ground and began causing a ruckus. I don't think releasing supernatural malefactors is the best way for cable to compete with streaming, not gonna lie. It's just as Egon gets a strong reading on his PKE meter that the Martians show themselves, each with a different colored aura. One of them almost immediately gets snagged in the proton stream and subsequently trapped, while the other two flee. The commander, with the red aura, laments this retreat, unable to simply atomize his foes like he used to. But in his frustration, he finds he can psychokinetically manipulate objects around him, such as the tractor, thrown aside with little effort. Maybe not so powerless after all.
I never have to leave the couch to grab my Doritos ever again!
Nearby, Venkman and Spengler start tracking him. Here, ghosty, ghosty, ghosty. Please, Peter, that doesn't work. You gotta sound more like you're belching at the same time. Here, ghosty, ghosty, like that. They narrowly avoid a cow thrown at them. How's the cow? I don't think it'll ever play the violin again. But on the plus side, and don't ask why, its milk will taste exactly like a Wendy's Frosty. The commander appears before them, controlling multiple sharp farming tools, along with a sinister laugh.
Don't take this the wrong way, but in 50 seconds, we die.
The Logo Ghost directs us to the other side of the farm, where Stans and Zetamore are contending with the other Martian, who lambasts them with something supposedly rude in his native tongue. Also, what's up with Ray's eyes? It looks like the whites are on top, as if he's smiling with them, but his pupils are below in the flesh-colored area. The more I look at it, the more it looks like he's giving a wry smile while wearing mascara. Janine doesn't mind you borrowing from her now and then, but you gotta buy your own Revlon eventually. Peter radios in, calling them to forget their target for now and help with the commander. They comply, but their actions perplex the blue-aura'd Martian, and his curiosity compels him to follow, to find out why they're leaving. The commander has proven too tricky to ensnare with their rays, and that apparently made him feel safe from capture. But the arrival of Ray and Winston prove him wrong, the latter throwing a trap that pulls the leader in, just as his lieutenant before him.
Well, it's roomier than my college dorm, I'll say that much.
The last one floating refuses to be taken, so flies off in the direction where the farmer said the ship crashed. In a kind of awkward progression, I guess the guys are already at the spot of the crash, because the ghost bursts through a scarecrow, giving an eerie look at Peter. Steady, guys! I don't like that look in his eye. This Martian is clearly a fan of that other Ghostbusters show, the one with the gorilla. He phases into the ground, and now the question is how they get him out. I vote explosives. You would. So would anyone that sat through an 8-hour marathon of Mythbusters. What's your point? The ground begins to tremble, but not from an earthquake. The team scatters as the saucer bursts from beneath the soil. It's difficult for the Martian to control, and he can't operate the weapons, but at least it can fly. Ray is reluctant to fire on such a massive scientific discovery as a spaceship, but he's outvoted by Egon and Peter, who think it's best to take it out before the ghost can carry out whatever plan he has for it.
We fall back on Plan B.
What's Plan B?
That's the one where we do something that isn't stupid.
Right now, that plan is to take it back to Mars, where his people will likely blame humans for what happened to the crew, and retaliate. They'll first go after Orson Welles for starting all this, but since he's already dead... Someone warn Maurice LaMarche, quick! He's alerted to a beeping sound. Pizza rolls are done! The self-destruct timer is operational again. And to make things worse, the pizza rolls are piping hot on the outside but frozen solid on the inside. Labeled in English for some reason. Maybe that component was an import. Perfect. The craft explodes, presumably when it had 3 days left until retirement. Ray regrets destroying it, but Winston points out their beams were deflecting off its hide like they were nothing. Now, if we'd been throwing tiny rocks at it, that's another story entirely. Maybe they'll never know what happened to the mysterious vessel that survived beneath the dirt for 7 decades, so they continue on to settle the farmer's bill and later return to their HQ for some food and rest, with Slimer floating around per usual. Despite Ray's lament at the lost opportunity to study alien technology, Venkman says that they did their job and they can return to more homegrown phantasms, even asking Slimer if they're done with Martians. But the Spud is distracted by something. Just outside their window is that last Martian ghost, frightening Slimer with its menacing gaze as the comic ends with a question mark. That was Mars Attacks the Real Ghostbusters, and it was a lot of fun. Felt a lot like one of the better episodes of the Ghostbusters cartoon. The dialogue, the character banter, the cornier jokes all would have fit in perfectly. It did well to portray Ray's nerdy, childlike excitement, Egon's stoic intellectualism, Venkman's snark and skepticism, and Winston being a little underdeveloped, let's be honest. Back then, though, they'd probably have to replace these iconic Martians with parody characters of some kind. I liked the touch of working in the War of the Worlds broadcast as an impetus for the events that followed. A fabricated story about Martians invading being taken seriously by actual Martians with actual plans of conquest. While I'm not very familiar with the Mars Attacks franchise, I am aware there's a satirical element involved. Overestimating themselves, misunderstanding Earth entertainment as factual events, all meant to be tongue-in-cheek. It also explains why they freak out over a small rock hitting their vessel, though maybe that doesn't come through for some, since the art has this thick-lined, shadowy vibe to it that can give the story a more serious tone. Same with that scene where the self-destruct kicks in. The alien's expression could be one of fatigue or determination, but something more akin to irritation or sadness may have better sold the ironic twist. I wouldn't call it a bad art style, but for me, perhaps misplaced for the humorous nature of the story. The pacing was good, save for a few hiccups. Winston suddenly appearing and declaring the commander pinned before throwing the trap didn't seem to make much sense, so that could have been clarified. Them just appearing at the crash site made me wonder if I had missed a page when reading the scans. Fortunately, I didn't. Having one panel of them headed over there or something would have made it feel less like teleporting. Or, to draw back to my earlier statements regarding the tiny meteor hitting the saucer, another panel of them paused after it struck, but before they start panicking. That, I think, would help boost the humor. Though I'm going by the assumption that these aliens are canonically threatening and dangerous, but still capable of being stupid goofballs. There are a couple of moments that could have been better explained, like why that nutcracker ghost was only vulnerable after a football was thrown through it, but that's a minor, as that scene is meant to establish the Busters and what they do, for those perhaps not familiar with the animated iteration. It did close on kind of a sequel tease, but this was printed back in 2013, so probably not going to happen, but if it did, and it had the same creative team, I certainly wouldn't say no. At the length of a standard comic, this one-shot does a great job of blending these two very different properties, while maintaining the humor and charm of a classic animated series, without really needing to know anything about the trading card aliens. If you're a Ghostbusters fan, it's definitely worth checking out. I'm the Angry Spork, and man, have I got issues.